Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Delarzak, product development and marketing coach and mom of three. Learn from and get inspired by women entrepreneurs killing it in the product space. Each episode, we will share the latest trends, proven strategies, and inside secrets of the product world, all designed to give you greater confidence to create your own success through a product venture. Let's do this. Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. I'm so excited to share this next guest. She's both a maker and an entrepreneur who has created 2 lines of products in the wellness space. Before we move on with the show, I'll share a listener review. This one is from Diana Gelfand. Inspirational. Nicole's podcasts are so relatable to many of us as we venture along the entrepreneurial journey. The insight and golden nuggets we pick up along the way as we listen to other stories help us problem solve, to think outside the box, to pick up on tips that we may not have thought about, and most importantly, fuel us to keep moving ahead. This podcast is a must listen. Thank you, Diana. I'm so happy to hear that this podcast helps you fuel ahead. It's really my mission and my honor to prepare this content for you so that you keep going in your product building journey. Reviews like this mean so much to me, but also, in case you're not aware, it pushes the show into the hands of more people. If not, podcasts often get lost in the abyss of podcasts. So if you're listening and love the podcast, please take a few seconds to jump on Apple Podcasts through your iTunes account, click on ratings and reviews, and add a review. It really only takes a minute, and you will just feel so good about yourself after you do this, I promise. Okay, also, you may have heard that I'm offering a free one-on-one strategy session at this time, and it's perfect for you if you'd like help with scaling your product business or if you're thinking of launching a product. We'll talk about your business or idea and you'll walk away with action items, and you can see what working with me is like if it's a fit. So you can go to NicoleDelarzak.com and book it there or click on the link in the show notes. Now on with the show. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Jazmine Stinson, holistic nutritionist and clinical herbalist and creator of Littletree Wellness and Apothecary. Jazmine is the mother of 2 small kids and has over 10 years experience in natural health with a passion for women, children, and family wellness. She created the Littletree line when pregnant with her first child and looking for clean, effective, and botanically focused products. Through her personal and professional experiences, she found a true calling working with the plants to create exceptional, luxurious, and functional products that support the whole family. Jazmine has recently launched her new line, Wild Hearts Botanicals, specializing in botanical wellness teas, tonics, and syrups. Both her brands are eco-conscious, using all-natural and organic ingredients with minimal recyclable and compostable packaging. Local and ethically wild-crafted herbs are used when available. All products are handmade using high-performing botanicals that are free from harsh ingredients, toxins, and animal testing. You're going to learn how Jazmine created her line of botanically based products, the importance of prioritizing the needs of customers first when creating new products, the ins and outs of claims and food labeling, how she managed to get on the top Canadian book retailers' gifting platform, and more. Now let's meet Jazmine. Welcome to the show, Jazmine.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I'm so excited to have you here. I love that you are an entrepreneur in so many different ways and different businesses. So I'd love for you to tell us about your journey to entrepreneurship, launching your own products, and everything.
Sure. So I actually didn't even realize that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It kind of just happened authentically over time. So back in 2009-10, I guess it was, I was at the time studying nutrition, and I was also doing some internships. And at that time, I was interning with a natural skincare company, actually, and also with a medical herbalist. And what I was learning how to, with a medical herbalist, grow herbs from seed and then harvest them and then make those into care products and also medicines. And that was just something as a side I was doing on top of my studies. And then as part of my studies of the internship with the skincare woman, her name's Sigrid Naturals, and she has a little shop in Wilno, Ontario, and she grows her own herbs, and she also has a beautiful home studio where she makes everything.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very pretty and, a very small business. It's her and maybe she has a couple helpers. So it was a really nice experience as well. So those kind of left an impression on me as I was going through the years, like, oh, these are two businesses that are having a holistic style business. They're using plants. At that time, though, I was more into the actual food side of things with my nutrition studies. So I wasn't thinking right off the bat, oh, I'm going to develop some product. So I found going through nutrition training and then the kind of work that I was doing a lot of hands-on type work. So I was working in the kitchen a lot. I was working with companies. One company is called Sketch, and they are a company that supports at-risk and marginalized youth. And I was doing a lot of healthy food preparation with them. I was working with Real Food for Real Kids in doing food stuff for, teaching kids nutrition and supporting them. And I found that I was doing less stuff that was like one-on-one clinic style setting, which we also did. And I did do for a while as well, but I found that I had much more of a enjoyable experience, or where I felt I was having the most fun was making things with my hands and allowing people to experience whatever it was that I was making and being able to support their health in that way. So fast forward a few years, let's say 2013, I became pregnant with my first child. And at that time, I also decided to go back to school to study herbalism. So I went back to study Western clinical herbalism.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a big undertaking because I was pregnant and I was like, okay, I'm going to have this baby and I'm going to study and I'm going to work as well and just figure it all out. It's going to be fine. And it was fine. It was extremely difficult, but it was amazing as well. So at that time, because of what I was studying, I was in the apothecary a lot. So I was making a lot of products, both for students and also for clients that would come into the school. So we had a student clinic there. So we would make all sorts of preparations for them. And at that time in my personal life, I was making a bunch of things for my pregnancy. So I, was making belly balms and I was making really nice nutritional teas and supportive teas and all sorts of different things to help me throughout my pregnancy. And also, I prepared myself a postpartum kit, so all the food and all the natural products that I felt would help me. Additionally, at that time, I was studying with Aviva Ram, who is a medical doctor, and she's an herbalist and a midwife. It was so inspirational to me because not only was I studying all these things, I was implementing them as well in my own life and really seeing the effects of everything that I was doing. So it kind of just started out as me making these things for myself and then, really enjoying the process, seeing all the benefits, and then, okay, I'm going to see if, some people who are also pregnant or postpartum, how they like them. So I started testing them out with friends and family, and I just had really good feedback and I was really enjoying the process. So I decided from there, like, I'm actually going to just start doing this as a side business to what I was already doing. So it was kind of something that started as a little hobby as I was in school and learning. And then it became a part of my life and a part of who I was and a part of how I supported other people as well.
Oh, cool. And are you still a nutritionist as well?
Yeah, I'm still a nutritionist. I'm still registered and everything. I just don't take one-on-one clients in that aspect anymore, but everything that I've learned in my nutrition training, and I also specialized in pre and postnatal nutrition as well. All of that understanding of what a woman needs through her motherhood journey is all implemented into the products that I make. So the nutrition and the herbalism, they kind of work really well together in that aspect.
So has this become your main gig, so to speak?
Yeah.
Like, this is your thing. Okay, cool. So really you fell into it accidentally. Like, it just came from a desire of you enjoy making things. You make it for yourself and then you find that other people need it and then you launched.
Yeah, well, ironically, just before I got pregnant, I started steering my business towards more of the, pre postnatal world, birthing world. But I wasn't thinking necessarily making products. I was, more thinking of consultations, one-on-one type work, and, also birthing work. I was also practicing as a doula back then as well. So I was supporting moms and new families in a different way. But when I personally became pregnant, it was that experience through, as I said, the study and the actual implementation that I saw, oh, this is truly what I want to be doing with this knowledge that I have. And this is how I want to service other women and other families is, my nutrition and my herbalism knowledge in these products, which can be a vehicle to support them throughout their journey.
Yeah, it's so amazing how you put all those pieces together from your background and what you are amazing at. You already have all these skills and you put it together and you make these products. Like that's fantastic.
It's honestly so fun because it's, there's an artistry to it and there's a science to it, and there's also like this personal connection and emotional embodiment that I have with it, and just coming to a place of service. So it's all of these things that really excite me to be able to actually do something where I can utilize all those different parts of myself.
Amazing. So you launched products towards moms, new moms, and also pregnant moms. Is that correct?
Hmm.
Okay. And can you tell us more about your products? What exactly are they? What do they do?
Yeah, so they're plant-based, holistic skincare and wellness products. So really the ingredients speak for themselves in each product. They are really plant forward, so really herb forward. And that means that I specifically choose herbs based on the quality that they possess. So, for example, I make a product that helps prevent and soothe diaper rash, for example. So, there's herbs that I'm going to choose specifically that help reduce inflammation and redness and irritation and soothe the skin. So, I'm using that knowledge that I have as an herbalist to be able to choose and pick which herbs I implement into these products. So, and the synergy of all the different plants together along with all the other oils that I use. So that in itself is the essence of what the products are. I have products that are for prenatal, so I have salves that help with the growing skin tissue as you're going through your pregnancy. I have salves that help support breastfeeding and help soothe the tender nipple tissue. I have wellness teas that can be taken in latter pregnancy and also postpartum to support, strength and nutrition and vigor, and also some that help to relax the nervous system and with sleep and stress, tension, anxiety. So, depending on what stage you're at in your journey, I have products that are tailored to help ease those transitions during that time. And then for babies as well, I have, things that are more therapeutic, like the rash salve. And then I have things more just, helps the skin be soft and smooth and smells really nice and it's calming. So,
Very cool. So basically, every product has a function, like a key benefit to it, in that it's sort of not medicinally, but it does something. Is that correct? It's like functional.
yeah, it's definitely functional. And a lot of them can actually be utilized in more than one way. So, if we take the example of my rash salve, for example, it can be used on eczema patches. It's also recommended that you address it internally as well for something like that. But, if somebody has just a random kind of rash going on, you can use it there as well. And that can be for the whole family. You can take it when you're camping. Like, it doesn't just have to be specifically for the diaper rash, but that was the intended purpose. But the actual herbs, which are medicinal, but they're extraction in a way that can be used really functionally by families, right? It's not like they feel like they're taking, really high potency of something internally. This is something that is subtle and effective, but they can feel safe using it as well.
And so you used herbal medicine to be able to help with these different benefits that you're trying to solve for.
Because it's a formula, I kind of come up with a formula of, well, I think about what I want to achieve. So, what is the problem or what is the pain point of the mom or the family or something going on with the baby? Okay, so I'll just go with the diaper rash. There's many things that you can do to prevent diaper rash, right? It's
Right.
not just applying something topically, but at some point, if you do have it, you want to apply something topically, right? So I'm thinking about all of the necessary parts of how you would help heal that. Like, what does it look like, to have diaper rash? Why, what are the herbs that can help to soothe and heal that? So
Great. I love that you just said that you focus on the pain point and then you try to solve for it because that is I find the most successful products do that. And you also launched a subscription box. How did you decide to launch this? And can you tell us more about it?
yeah, so the Mama Care, it's called the Mama Care Botanical Subscription Box. And this is really a box to support mothers along their journey. So I wanted to develop something that wasn't just a one time thing, which is great. You can buy a product on its own, but I wanted to have a curated box that really met them where they were at specifically, and it could grow through them throughout their pregnancy and through their postpartum. So with this box, the mama can let me know where they're at, and I will curate something specific for them. And then they can order it bi-monthly, they can order it quarterly. They have different options of how they can get it. But what I really love about it as well is that I include an e-guide, so I can give them some more knowledge and information beyond just them using a product. So I'm telling them, yes, what the product is and what it's good for and all the many uses of that one particular product, what the herbs are for. But I'm also giving them some botanical tips that are relevant to where they're at. So it might be me letting them know if they're in the postpartum phase, for example, like 5 herbs that will help support your postpartum healing. So then I will outline that and I'll write it in a very easy, digestible way. And then I could also include, like one I just wrote, I included, it's kind of like a bliss ball, energy ball, and it has some herbs rolled into it that help support lactation as well and energy. So it's kind of putting together more of the educational and my background into it, and giving them an extra piece of support that they can utilize how they want. And it's my way of giving a little bit more throughout their experience.
And these are tailored to each individual?
Yeah, because each box is different, because it just depends on what stage they're at. So I'm going to have something completely different for somebody who's in their first trimester versus somebody in their third trimester. Right. So the tips will be different, and the ingredients of the box will be different as well.
And would you have an appointment with them to discuss like what exactly their needs are, or is it just they fill out a survey and then they get the right box for them?
It's not that individual where they could write to me and say I'm allergic to so and so, but it's not a consultation where I'm getting super in depth with them about. It's not like that, because that would be more of a separate long appointment, which is usually an hour and a half for your initial, and then there's usually subsequent. So it's still something that somebody could purchase for somebody as a gift, and they could let me know where they're at in their pregnancy. And it's information, right? It's not me telling them exactly what to do. It's like, these are things that are out there and available to you to support you, and they digest that knowledge themselves, and they can choose to utilize it if they want or not, and they can speak to other people about it, see what they're comfortable with. But it's more to have an educational component to it.
I love that. I think that's so amazing because people want to feel that extra sense of support. They know they're doing something great for themselves, but to have that extra support and education, I think that is such a great value add.
Yeah. And just to have some more information, I'm kind of limited what I can write on a little label. The jars are quite small.
Right.
So just to give them a little bit more in-depth information on what it's about. And I think that's nice too, because I find people, who are pregnant and postpartum and who are looking for things for their babies, they're really cautious about, what they're using, or they want to know what the ingredients are and what the benefits of them are. Right.
And it helps them keep on track, because otherwise, if you don't know why you're doing something, you're not as likely to stick with it. That is very important. And when did you launch the subscription box?
I only launched a couple months ago, so it's pretty new. So I've sold a few of them for sure. I'm selling now on Thoughtful, which is Indigo's online gifting platform. So I'm finding that through there's been more interest for some reason than right off my website. And I don't know if that's just the way that it's being seen, or because it is a nice gift that it can allow some extra pampering for the mom and some therapeutics in there, and also the educational component too. So other people who are reading it, besides just a new mom or a parent, think that is a good gift as well, because sometimes it's hard for moms to want to treat themselves to something, right?
Exactly. But I also think that people who go to websites like Thoughtful, there's just so much more traffic that they get on their website. So you're smart to be on other platforms as well, other than your own site.
Yeah, for sure.
So are you also selling in stores, or is your product strictly e-commerce?
Right now it's e-commerce. I used to sell in stores a couple years ago. And since COVID, I'm all online right now. I am looking at the possibility of selling to more stores. I have a few people that I'm currently talking with, but it's not necessarily my main goal. So I'm more business to customer than business to business. But I do want to be in some stores, but it's not like my main my main goal is to do that.
And my listeners would be really interested in the process you took to launch your product. So I wonder if I can ask you a few questions about this. So you mentioned that you got started organically. It's something that you experimented with and you had people try it out and they seemed to like it. Like, did you do any sort of formal testing or did you have to get any kind of regulatory approvals or anything like that?
Well, you could. I mean, it depends if you're doing natural body care, you don't need to send your products in. You can if you want. But the testing that I did was more on people and their feedback. So it was, having that kind of beta phase period or the beta testing where I would, make a product, test it myself. As I said, I was also pregnant postpartum when I was developing all these, but also giving it to other people as well and getting their feedback and seeing, what they liked, what they didn't like. So that process was extremely helpful. And then just kind of fine tuning it from there.
Okay, great. And then as a result, could you make any claims like, or is it sort of like more soft, like this can support the lactation?
Yeah, you have to be a little bit careful about your wording. Support is a good word. It will do this is more of a claim and a statement. And then you'd be considered more into like the drug category, right? That is one thing to consider when you are launching products is your wording and the semantics of everything because, you can't make false claims, right?
Exactly. Like even saying natural, all natural is very difficult to say that's considered like a claim. So you have to say things like no added preservatives or whatever, like the softer minimal version of that because
Yeah.
some things are really very strictly enforced.
Yeah, I think you need to pay particularly more attention on that with your labels, for example, than, on your website, you could say it's, an all natural. It's people say things it's all natural when it might not necessarily be all natural, right? And kind of like a greenwashing kind of way to get people to be interested in it. And then really, if you look a little bit deeper into the ingredients or into the processes that they do, it might not be the case. But yeah, labeling is one thing it takes a fair amount of time to just go through the requirements, which is easy enough to do. It's all listed on the Health Canada website and there's lots of links and everything. And so that's a process in itself, right? Just learning what you can do and what you can't do.
Right, right. Yeah, no, it's very tricky with marketing and trying to say things that the product can do without
Making a claim.
making a claim.
Which is especially hard for an herbalist.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I remember at one point I was working in the tea category and we are trying to launch some wellness teas that would like using Chinese herbal medicine. And we were trying to say certain things that it would do and you couldn't say it. So like what was a different way to say it? It's really tricky because you've got these, you don't want to be in the drug category. That's a totally different ballgame.
It's so different. So it's interesting that you would even be put into that, right? But that's why it is just so important to watch the language. And I'm still have to catch myself with it as well. So, it's an ongoing thing, right?
And how did you develop the right product formula? Did you do a few batches? How did you know it was right?
Yeah, so I had a fair amount of training just going through my schooling and the internships that I did. As I mentioned, I studied with a medical herbalist and there was a whole, I think it was 10 months or something like that, where we went through the growing season and then made products. So I had experience that way. I had experience through the other internship with the skincare producer and then through my own personal experience. So I kind of already had an idea of what worked and what didn't. But for sure, I did still have that growing process of how much of this to add, what to leave out, how does this texture feel, how long does it last. There are so many different variables to consider when you're making a batch, but I probably did several before I was like, okay, this one is good, this one works. And there's just so temperature too. You could pour something and if the oil is a little bit too hot, then the salve, for example, it's going to sink in the middle and it's not going to look good, right? And that could be a marginal difference from it being that right spot of pouring it. So, or if you pour too fast or like finesse, there's a lot of finesse in making products too. And you need mindfulness and you need attention to detail. So that takes time and that takes practice.
Right, right. And it's not something you see when you like give it something to a manufacturer or producer. They make it for you so you don't know. But if you're doing it yourself, you really see the art that goes into it.
Yeah, it's my favorite part.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
the creation process is so amazing to be able to, take an herb and then just make it into a beautiful product that is supportive to people. It's actually quite magical. I love it. And yeah, the actual the art of it all is so interesting, and the chemistry of it as well.
Very cool. And how long does it take you to design a product?
Well, you know what? I pop out ideas so quickly. I have so many ideas. I have books and books of ideas. Um, but I have to narrow it down, right? Just because I love the formulation process of, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Who is this for? What herbs are for this? Narrow that down, and then let's make a prototype of it, right? Let's test it out. Let's see what oils work, what doesn't, how it smells, the texture, everything. So many elements to consider. So the process, the initial designing of the process could take a very short amount of time, but then it would be like that finessing of, what's the tweaking, and, if there's any changes. That would be the longer process, I would say. And then there's also like the technical side of things, like, making the label, getting the translations, because you have to have, French translations, so all that kind of stuff. That's usually what holds me back more than coming up with an idea, formulating it together, making it. It's usually that other stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the actual like creation, say, of a new body lotion or something, would that be a few months for you, or would it be like, a couple weeks or?
Yeah, less.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like a couple weeks.
Wow. That's amazing.
Not to say that I'm making things out that quickly, but the thought process, writing it down, making it, it's pretty quick. And then it's a matter of, do I like it? Do I not like it? What do I want to change? And then if, once I finally settle on it, so the settling period or the final decision process, that could be a little bit longer, like another week or two. And then, as I said, the label and all that stuff could be another while. So, but because, there's certain formulas that I have, and then I can just mix the different herbs that I use, right? So it's not always necessarily starting out with a brand new formula from scratch. It can just be playing with, existing formulas. And if you're trying to have a different effect, then you use, different herbs, for example. So,
and do you make everything yourself? Like,
Yeah.
do you produce all the products? You really?
I do it all myself. Yeah. Yeah. That's the part that I love. So that's the part that I love, the manufacturing process and the creation process. So if I was to hand off something, it wouldn't be that, most likely.
Yeah. That's incredible. Wow. So you've got it. It's basically like a very vertical business where you're doing pretty much everything. You're the back end, the front end. And what kind of process did you go through to develop your brand and the packaging, the website design?
That's a long process for me anyways. It was. So for me, it was kind of like starting with what was the look that I wanted and the feel that I wanted. And I was kind of looking for a classic apothecary style that was clean, but then more modernized and elegant. So that was kind of, what I had imagined. And then I started sketching out personally the logos. And then I used to actually be a painter. I used to do classical painting. So I quite enjoyed that process as well. I was doing that and I was like, oh, I need like another set of eyes. I'm just going to outsource this. So I hired a couple people to do the logo, and then I didn't like it. So then I actually went back with my original idea and then just had somebody kind of sketch that on a computer for me. And then the labeling, like all that kind of stuff, I work with somebody else who helps me put all that into the computer so I can, print it out. I don't actually do that part. Thankfully, I have help in that area. And then in terms of the website, I actually used to be on WordPress that somebody else designed for me. And I found that it wasn't very intuitive for me, and I wanted to be able to edit everything. Well, I wanted to be able to just easily go in and edit, not have to, always email somebody, be like, hey, can you just fix this little thing? Because I was constantly, changing things as I went along, or having to edit things or update things. Right. So I wanted to have some control over that. So I actually said, okay, I'm not using this platform anymore, and I'm going to completely change. So then I went with Shopify, and I learned how to build my own website.
Nice. I agree with that. Having the ability to update your website yourself is so
much easier.
So much easier. Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm constantly, reaching out for the littlest things. There's some bigger things. Back also when I had my other website, I was offering a lot of services. So I was offering nutrition consultations and herbal medicine consultations and doula services. And, I was offering a lot on top of the products. And then I was like, I'm offering too much. I need to not only for the lifestyle that I wanted. But, I wanted to just narrow it down to what I wanted to do the most. And that was in the product development. So I said, this platform isn't working for me at all. I need an e-commerce platform. I need something intuitive and easy to use. And Shopify was absolutely amazing with that.
Right. I noticed you have two websites. So you've got Littletree Wellness and Wild Hearts Botanicals. So can you explain what the difference is between the two?
Yeah, so they're completely different. I call them sister businesses because, I am the person behind them both. But, Littletree Wellness and Apothecary is really designed to support mothers, families, and babies, whereas the Wild Hearts Botanicals is not necessarily for new families. It specializes in botanical wellness, teas, tonics, and syrups. So it's more for the person who, loves tea and lattes and beverages, but is looking to take it up to a next level and have, a wellness component to it to support their overall health. So that's a completely different project, which I launched just last year. So,
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we'll talk about that. Wow. Interesting.
yeah, I built the two separate websites. Once I learned how to build the Littletree website on Shopify, I was like, okay, now I have an understanding of how this platform works. Then I knew when I was launching the other site that I could just build it myself.
So that's interesting. And I wonder if you could explain why two separate brands? Why not put them all under one brand?
I chose that because I wanted to have a different reach that wasn't necessarily new moms. Also, there's a lot of limitations I have with that in terms of being a pregnant or postpartum woman. There's a lot of herbs that you just can't use, right? For safety reasons, and it's just not appropriate. And in my personal life too, these are things that I have been drinking and enjoying for years, and I always wanted to have a brand that had more of these kind of items, but I didn't see how it really fitted into that kind of mama baby world. So I do have supportive drinks, like teas for that, but they're made specifically for pre-postpartum. So these other ones, they're kind of like, make yourself a nice cocktail or mocktail. You can add a little bit of this, herbal supportive syrup to it, and it tastes delicious. It's completely different. So I didn't necessarily feel like it was the right fit to amalgamate them all into one. I have had that suggested to me, but I just see them in my mind as separate.
Yeah, no, it's a very common question. And there are some times when it's appropriate to put it under one sort of mother brand, and sometimes when it's just totally not. And I think one of the big key things to consider is who's the target market. And if the target market is like completely different, well, that's definitely one thing to consider, because you're going to be targeting and also the communication of it, and then what the brand stands for. It's going to be talked about in totally different ways. So I think that, yeah, that is definitely a wise decision to keep them separate if they're so different that you're like talking about them differently. Although there are arguments where you can actually put it under one mother brand, and then, you have your different line. Okay, this is the line for moms and babies. This is the line for every day. It just depends. It really is. It's a debate. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like I would need more training on that to really, like moving forward, if I at some point wanted to do that, have one mother brand. I just don't see how, the ones that I have right now, because I launched with just 5 products, and most of them aren't appropriate for pregnancy. So if I had those on my current website under the same name, I would constantly be getting, is this safe? Can I drink this? And then they'd be like, well, if I can't, why is it here?
Yeah. That's an interesting discussion, because I mean, you could have a section of your website just, this is the line for moms and babies, and this is the line for like every day. I don't know. You know how like clothing stores, right? You've got moms. I mean, women, no, not moms, but women, men, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, and there's pluses and minuses for both different approaches. And I mean, the one thing is it's very expensive to get people to your website, right? So if you're supporting 2 different brands and supporting brand awareness for 2 different brands, sometimes that's challenging too.
And the social media, that there's definitely a lot more than I was anticipating in terms of keeping up with it with 2, right? So I can definitely see the benefits of having it as one. Or alternatively, I considered myself as being kind of the brand, and then these other things. These are things that I do under me as a brand. They happen to have different names, but I'm kind of just showcasing them as a part of myself as a brand and lifestyle, etc. The nutritionist and herbalist mom who makes these, different products.
Yeah.
I find that's a really complicated conversation. When the time when I was launching it, it was just way too involved and in depth for me to go there. So it's just like, I want to get these out and, see how it goes. And, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it later on.
Yeah, and it's great that you just went with it. Like you did it and you launched during COVID. So that's fantastic. Okay, going back to the question about food safety and claims, how did you educate yourself on the different rules about and requirements for packaging and safety guidelines?
I just look them up, so you can easily go onto the Health Canada website. You can look at, the Consumer Packaging and Labeling Act. It clearly outlines what you can say, what you can't say, and things change depending on what category you're in. For me, it can be different because I can be considered in two different categories. One being natural care, and then the other one can be considered like a food product. So with that, you just have to be sure that you're looking through the information and then applying it accordingly. So it's all there. They have tools and stuff, that links and tools that you can use. Like if you need to create any kind of nutrition facts table or anything like that, if it's relevant to what you're doing. Like for me, example, for the skincare, I also use Latin, right? So I use the English name, the common English name, and then I use the Latin name. So all that kind of stuff. And, you have to put things in a certain order when on the label. Like there's a lot of nitty gritty details that, or even like the font size has to be a certain size legally. You have to list like obviously where it's made and who makes it and storage instructions, all that kind of stuff. So it was more of just like a process of research, just like with anything else. I actually, having this business was so much behind the scenes research on so many levels. That's probably more a surprising thing for people when they think about starting, a natural skincare or wellness company. You have a lot of time spent in that kind of area.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just even starting a new business, let alone starting a product and a food business too. There's so much involved, and definitely with the packaging requirements. I remember we had, and this is in a bigger company, we would have a packaging expert who knows all the ins and outs of, how big does the font size need to be and what's the order and all that kind of stuff. You have an expert for that, or you could even hire consultants who do that. So that's pretty amazing that you do it yourself.
Yeah, like if at the time when I was doing it, if I had the budget to have a expert just come in and say, hey, yeah, that's the thing. There's an expert for every single aspect of it. And it's like when you're a startup business, I actually would wish that I knew earlier that I could have a team and I didn't have to do everything by myself. But at the same time, there are certain things that I knew that I could do myself and figure out myself. And if I just put that extra time and research into, right? So it's kind of like you pick your battles.
Yeah, you've got limited resources, so you've got to spend them wisely. And do you have a team? Do you have help with anything?
The only help I have right now is with the labeling and then a little bit with marketing as well, like Facebook ads. But yeah, that's something that I definitely want to implement this year is having more of a team. One being a virtual assistant would be nice to have. I think I would need some marketing help as well. I'm so used to doing it all on my own. But there is so much value in having other people where that's their forte and their domain to help you out along the way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we all need that.
Especially now when like time is more limited for most people, right? With kids, if you have kids or, in lockdown, it's more challenging now too.
Yeah, no, you can't do everything yourself. And especially when it's not your zone of genius, it just takes longer.
Yeah. And I think too, because for so many years, I was doing it on the side, right? So I was already working as, a herbalist, nutritionist, and then I was doing my products on the side, plus, being a mom, et cetera, raising my family. So I didn't mind at that time taking it in little bits and increments, right? If I wasn't doing anything else and I was just going straight for it, I think I would have had a different approach, but it kind of just developed naturally. And I was kind of going through all the different stages of what I felt like I needed to do.
Totally.
So it was definitely a longer process. It's been a while for sure, but I have learned so much along the way, just, doing that research and that trial and error and failing in a bunch of ways and then figuring it out, right? So
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it can be challenging, but like once you actually learn it, it's very rewarding because you're like, wow, I learned this all by myself just by Googling. Look at me.
oh yeah. Like so fancy. I felt like that when I did the website because I always coin myself as not a tech person.
Right.
But then I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I just need to figure this out. So then like for a month solid, that's what I did. I put trying to focus on sales to the back burner, and I was like, I just need to learn how to build a website. So I like watched every tutorial. And then I'm like, yay, I did that. And I was like, there were some parts that I oddly enjoyed, but like I would never do that as my main thing. Like I don't want to do that, but I'm glad that I did it.
No, I can totally relate to the tech part. I was so impressed when I learned different things on the email system, and there's always so much to learn in e-commerce and in marketing. It's just crazy. New things all the time. And what about logistics? Like, do you distribute? Do you ship from your house? What do you do there?
So yeah, I fulfill everything myself as well. I store things myself. I have the option. I also run a commercial space. So yeah, like there's certain things that I produce in a commercial kitchen, and there's an option to store things and a workspace there as well. What I can do with my own storage versus there, I kind of decide because I have to pay extra for everything, right? So what I need to do on my own, I'll do on my own. What I need to do there, I do there. Logistically speaking, I'm the one that fulfills everything and ships it. Down the road, I might hire somebody to do that for me, but right now I fulfill it and do it all myself.
And then how about trial and awareness of your product? How are you managing to get that?
So that's a little bit more challenging right now because of our current pandemic. Right now, because it's all online, right? It's just trying to build awareness around what it is that I have and making new connections online. So I'm always kind of finding new people that are kind of in a similar arena that I'm in and seeing if there's a way that we can, work together or, just having some authentic relationships and conversations. And, sometimes I send people product to try to see if it's a good fit for, if we can work together on some level. So that is something that I do fairly often, actually. It's harder now because people can't actually come and sample things, right? So it's more of trying to now build that online networking and marketing and advertising where people can get, some sort of semblance of what I'm all about and what I'm doing. And then if they're interested, they either order or they ask, for a sample. So
Yeah, we have to look at creative ways to get the word out these days for sure. And what are some of the key wins you've had to date?
So key wins recently would be selling on Thoughtfully, so Indigo's online gifting. That I only actually the process took a while to actually get everything up there, but so it's been a couple months since I've been selling with them.
Great.
So that was awesome because it was a little bit unexpected, and I actually had Indigo's baby buyer, had a conversation with her, and she really loved what I was doing. So that was
Oh,
great
great.
that I was able to touch point with her. I've done a lot of larger shows, which is nice, like some bigger shows at Exhibition Place and the Mississauga Center. So like the bigger mama baby toddler show. Lots of just like community shows too, like the Bump to Baby show and the Healthy Mom. So I always find it a win when I'm able to build authentic relationships with people in the community and be able to support one another and kind of be in that same world together. It's always a nice feeling to be able to be a part of that. I do like the bigger shows, for the exposure that it gets, but I like the feeling of, kind of the medium-sized ones where it's, in a certain area of the city and it's like that community. And, I love that. Just building these authentic relationships has been a key win for me. And it's, been a few years I've been doing this, like about 7 years, and where I've been involved in kind of the mom baby world for a while. So, I've built a lot of strong relationships. So
Oh, very cool.
and then, launching my sister business during the pandemic was a win. Just that I kept it going, and didn't fold. Everybody is like, "Oh, are you still doing that?" Because of the pandemic. And I was like, "Well, yeah, it's obviously not the way that I imagined doing it, but I'm still decided to do it regardless." Right. So I'd say another win is just the feedback that I've gotten from, a lot of the people over the years the clients and the relationships I've made of people who've tried the products and love it and they come back. And, I have a lot of people just reach out to me with questions, and I like that part as well.
That must be so rewarding for sure. And the process for the indigo thoughtful is you had to get like approval from the buyer. Is that how
So
it
I don't
goes?
know if this is how it initially works, where the buyer specifically, if you normally have a call with the buyer, or if it's just somebody in that category. So she kind of made me feel like there was other people involved, but she buys normally for in store as well. Yeah, I mean, the process was we just had a phone conversation, and well, I reached out to them initially, but I wasn't expecting the buyer to necessarily get back to me. And yeah, she looked into my products, and then we just had a conversation about what it is that I do and kind of things we've talked about, like, how they're helpful to new families and how they're made, etc. And she was just really into it, and she loved that, I was a local business, because their whole thing right now is trying to support local businesses. And, I'm also eco-friendly business, and, I'm a mom, so it's a relatable product. And then from there, she kind of passed me off to somebody else who handles more of the tech side of things. And that's the process that took a little bit longer. Was just, there was a lot of forms to fill out, and, just a lot of stuff on their back end. So that process, especially, it was around Christmas when it all kind of got launched. So it was a really busy time for them as well. So there was a little bit of lag that way, but luckily everything still got up just before the holidays. So I was able to be there then. But yeah.
That's amazing. Well done. Congrats. And launching during COVID, what was that like? Did you have any second thoughts?
Well, it was so funny because I did this kind of challenge where I was like, I'm going to have this done by February. So I did that, and I was like, I'm going to start with 5 products, and then I'm constantly developing new ones as well. And, I thought that I would be out there in person talking about them, selling them, and also I did think about more retail as well for this line. And yeah, none of that worked out. So there was that thought of, well, can I just do this all online? Because my products are so something that you want to look at, you want to smell, you want to taste, you want to touch. They're very sensory, relationship with these things, right? So it's a little bit harder to get all that across online than it is in person. But I was like, I'm just going to do it anyways and see how it goes. And it's been an interesting process, but it's still, I'm still so glad that I did it, because I could have just been waiting for the pandemic to end, which we don't know when that's going to happen. And then I would have never launched. Right?
For sure.
So now I'm just forcing myself to find new and creative ways to get the information out there. And that goes with my other business as well, right? Because I used to do a lot of in-person events. That's mostly what I did, was in person. So, and that was a lot easier for me because I could have that one-on-one conversation with somebody. And I was so used to that too from clinical practice, speaking with people, finding out what their pain points were, their challenges were, and, how my products could help them. And, why should they care? Right? And that was easier for me and more authentic for me. So having to do all this now virtually and online was definitely a challenge and a learning curve for me, because it just wasn't the way that I was used to relating or selling.
And what would you say is the number one thing you learned since having to go completely online?
The number one thing I've learned so much, just like so I've learned so much just on the tech side of things. As I said, just like building my website, maybe just how many faucets there are to it, like how involved it all is, from the marketing and the advertising and the funnels and the e-commerce. There's just so many elements to it, which I don't think I really realized prior, because I wasn't focused on online. I was an in-person business. Right. So I had a website, and, I had some social media, but it wasn't like I didn't put a lot of focus on it, because I didn't feel like I needed to at that time. But now I see just truly how important it is, whether even when we do go back to being able to have in-person events, it is important to have an online presence and to kind of be up to speed with these things, and also have some support. That's the number one thing I learned, is I need more support.
Right, for sure. Well, it's a changing world all the time.
I can't keep up with all of those.
The digital marketing world changes like constantly. So even as a marketer, you got to keep up with all of it. So like you're trying to keep up with everything. It's hard. Yeah.
So I think that was a key learning for sure. Is just, you can't do everything on your own, especially on the spots that aren't my zone of genius, right?
Right.
Why am I going to try to learn all the things? It's taking away from the parts that I really excel at and the parts that I want to be doing, right?
And what are your top tips for people who want to get started with the business?
Find a definite why behind why you want to do it. What is the purpose? Who are you trying to service? What challenge are you trying to help people overcome? What are the pain points? Find your kind of client, your avatar. So start with that. And then once you have decided who you want to service, then start doing some initial market research, right? Finding out more about them and, the kind of things that they like, they don't like, what are they involved with, kind of have to find out a lot about your target market. Otherwise, you're kind of not speaking to them, right? And then just to try not to let all of the details get in your way of actually starting. So it's like, okay, we need to have a website, we need to have the social media, and then we need to have a marketer, and then we need to have, somebody helping with the brand. Like, just try not to have all the ducks lined up in a row and everything perfect before you start, because you'll find that most likely you're going to change it along the way anyways.
So true. Yep.
When I look at like my first packaging versus my packaging now, it's completely, like, in terms of, the jars that I use, for example, they're completely different, because before I was a little bit darker, and then I was like, I want this actually to be lighter and like just have a different feel to it. So things like that, you're not going to really know till you try not to get lost in all the details of it being a certain way before you start. And then also, like, comparing, I find that sometimes we have an idea, but then we get intimidated to start it because we might think, like, who are we to do this? Or there's so many people already out there doing it. Like, is there room for me here? Is there space for me? Is the market too saturated, etc.? Like, all those mental thoughts that we have. And I think it's important, to see, what else is out there, but not necessarily stop yourself from doing it because you feel like there's no space for you, because it's kind of a defeating feeling and stopping you from actually pursuing something that you want to do. So just compare less and just try. What's the worst that can happen, right?
Yeah, no, it's so true because you go, oh, there's so many different brands in this space already. Well, yeah, like I was just speaking with someone who launched the skincare line, and she said, yeah, there's so many skincare brands out there, but I could have let that stop me. But no, I just, I launched, and it's everyone needs skincare. So there's always going to be a need for it. And she just picked her differentiator. And I think that's also the key. Like, you want to differentiate your brand and make sure that you offer something and you solve a problem. But just because there's other products out there like that, it doesn't mean you can't enter the space.
I mean, I feel
Yeah.
the same way. Like, there's now, there was already products out there that, were for mom and baby back when I started. There wasn't as much as there are now. Like, definitely over the years, there's been more that popped out. And you could have that thought of, oh, well, should I even bother doing this anymore? Like, there's so many people doing it. Or is
Right.
it, okay, well, what is, your unique spin on it, right? And you might be talking to, you might be in the same target market, but you're speaking to a different person sometimes within that target market, right? Like, you're going to relate on a different level.
Yeah, for sure. And as long as you're differentiated somehow, it could be like positioning, could be what you offer, your benefits. And usually you want to be somehow different, but yeah, as long as you're different, then I think there's room for it, and people have different personalities and different preferences. So, thank you so much for coming on the show and for all of your wisdom, and it's just fascinating to hear about all that you built with basically your knowledge. So cool. Can you tell us where people can find you and your products?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me. It was awesome to chat with you. For my Littletree Wellness and Apothecary, you can find me on littletreewellness.com. And then my Instagram is Littletree Wellness. For my Wild Hearts Botanicals, the botanical teas, tonics, and syrups. I know we didn't really talk too much about that brand today, but we didn't have all the time, right? That is wildheartsbotanicals.com is the website. And then at Wild Hearts Botanicals is Instagram. Info at wildheartsbotanicals.com. You can email me. And then I should mention my email for Littletree Wellness is jasmine@littletreewellness.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll put that all in the show notes. And I'm sure people will want to try all of the skincare and all of the different tonics as well. The subscription box sounds amazing. So, yeah, really cool. Love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you for listening to the Productpreneur Podcast. If you loved this episode, we'd be so grateful if you could take a sec to subscribe, share it, and review it on Apple Podcasts. Your review will help more women build their own dream product business. By the way, if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, email me at info@nicoledelarzac.com. Until next time, keep dreaming up those product ideas.